folks. Welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris once again. Hello, folks, and welcome back to Chris Wyatt Africa for the Indaba Conversation with Chris. It's Monday, the 11th of October. Here in the United States, it's Columbus Day. Despite the denigration of the historical achievements of Christopher Columbus and the racist narrative here, it's still celebrated as a federal holiday for now. Perhaps not in the future, but it's a federal holiday. My special feature guest today is none other than the spokesperson and campaigns manager for AfriForum, and that's Jacques Broodryk. Hey, Jacques, how's it?
Hey, Chris. How's it going? Thank you very much for having me on.
No, it's my pleasure. I'm doing a lot of election coverage here, and we're going to talk a little bit about a topic today that's not really an election issue, but it certainly will play a role, I think, in the election, at least in the Western Cape. And that's specifically, I asked you last time about there's multiple media reports that have been coming out talking about AfriForum has filed a case with the Constitutional Court, and you got to correct me because this is what the media is saying, on behalf of trying to get the legislature to take action or change something in the law or the Constitution so that premiers of provinces can hold referendums on issues. Now, I'm confused by that. I heard Jack Miller from the Cape Independence Party say that premiers can already do that, and I thought that that wasn't the case. And if that was the case, why would you even have a court case? What have I gotten right? What have I gotten wrong about it? Because the media has said that two things before you answer that. They've in multiple reports from all over. They've said that AfriForum supports Cape secession. I don't know if that's true. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You can clarify that. But certainly you have a court case which favors giving more autonomy or authority to provincial premiers. I think I've got that correct.
Yeah, you basically do. So let me start with AfriForum's point of view regarding Cape secession, and then I'll get to the court case.
Okay.
So our stance is that we definitely are in support of growing autonomy for the Western Cape. And this is a decision that we took after our branches in the Western Cape got together and unanimously decided that they are in support of this. And then it was discussed within AfriForum itself, and the decision was taken that we will officially support growing autonomy for the Western Cape. And should that lead to secession, then obviously we won't oppose that at all. But we do think it's very important to first lay the groundwork. You need to get the basics in place before you can just secede. Even though the ANC government really doesn't do a whole lot, you are going to lose access to funding and all kinds of other practical matters that you will have to make sure you're able to cope with should the Western Cape lead to actual secession. So as far as the court case is concerned, I'm not surprised that you might be a bit confused. The media hardly ever get their facts correct when reporting on AfriForum. So it's a question of law at the moment. I know there are people who differ, who say that premiers can already call referendums. That doesn't seem to be our legal team's opinion. So at the moment, we are our legal team is preparing to take this court to the Constitutional Court to pretty much get the Constitutional Court to deliver a judgment and to update the 1983 Referendum Act, which is applicable in this case, to align it with the current Constitution and to actually make it viable and to ensure that premiers can call referendums on these type of issues. Now, we're well aware that a referendum isn't going to hold any legal water should the majority of people in the Western Cape decide that they do want independence or secession, but it will give people who share that sentiment the moral high ground, and it will give momentum to the entire campaign.
Okay, so a couple things. I'll make sure I understood correctly because we don't want to confuse people here. And you're right. I am confused because the media reports so many different things. I mean, so let me make sure I'm clear on this. First off, there's a 1983 act that is in question here. There's an incongruity between that. Oh, big word alert for my audience. Incongruity. It's a big word alert. We have to ring the bell for that when we use the big word. We have Gareth Cliff on the program, and we have big word alerts. So anyway, but yeah. So
you need to take it easy. Remember, it's late in the evening. My English is almost used up for the day.
Well, then I'll just confuse you and bedazzle you. So, well, my Afrikaans was used up by 7 a.m. this morning. Yesterday, I had Caro Charo on the program, and one of his devoted viewers from his own program said, "Hey, you got to hit Chris with the Afrikaans." And so he starts talking to me in Afrikaans. And I understood him. I'm like, "Hey, man, ek praat nie Afrikaans nie, eh?" Anyway, so because he wasn't going to drag me into that because I'd start embarrassing myself with my pronunciation. But okay, so the two things. So there's 1983 law, and there appears to be some incongruity or disconnect with the Constitution, the majority Constitution. The current Constitution came out in the late 1990s after majority rule. So that's what you're trying to sort out to make that clarify with the case, correct? With the Constitutional Court.
Yeah, we want to pretty much officiate it as official as it can be.
Okay.
So that there's weight behind the campaign.
All right, but that does not equate to endorsing Cape secession. And if I heard you correctly, you don't oppose it, you're not endorsing it, you're just helping take care of civil rights, it sounds like, so people have the opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. Like I said, we definitely endorse growing autonomy in the Western Cape and other parts of South Africa as well. We support decentralized government systems, and we want communities to have more control over their own decisions and their own fate. There's no point in central planners sitting in Pretoria deciding how much fishermen in Cape Town can catch. It's absolutely illogical, and that's the type of problem we have with a lot of areas in the country. And we've seen that the ANC's true colors. They've shown their corrupt, thieving disappointment of a government system for years now, repeatedly. And any method to get away and get out from underneath that power-hungry control structure that's just abusing taxpayers needs to be attempted.
Well, I think it's important to address this because the phrase you've used is makes all the sense to me, where you're talking about increased autonomy. Autonomy is not the same as independence or secession necessarily. We have parts of countries, for instance, the Faroe Islands are a self-autonomous unit of Denmark, but Denmark is responsible for their foreign policy, for their national defense, for their currency, for all of those things, national governance, but it's a semi-autonomous. We have the Åland Islands, which are off the coast of Finland. They're 90% Swedish speaking because of historical colonization there, but they're semi-autonomous or autonomous part of Finland. In fact, they're not part of the Eurozone. They're outside the European Union, even though Finland's in the European Union. So I think that's an important distinction to make here. And it also sounds like AfriForum is in favor of something I and many others talked about, and that's more of a federal system, decentralized, where there's local autonomy to make decisions. That sounds like where you guys are headed towards, or what you're supporting.
Yeah, definitely. I won't go all out to say that we're full-out federalists, but we do support more of a federal type system, and we definitely want communities to have more say and control over their own woes and their own issues. So yeah, we definitely support growing autonomy in the Western Cape, and it's something that we're working very hard towards on the ground and behind the scenes. The Western Cape is our second strongest support base. Most of our members are in Gauteng, and then Western Cape is the second biggest, but it's also growing very quickly. AfriForum is really growing a lot in the Western Cape in terms of membership as well as new branches, and we're going to work very hard towards this goal and try and help the people of the Western Cape to set up their own structures and have control over their own lives.
Now, it's interesting because for those who actually understand the American system, which seems to be few Americans, but those who actually understand our political system, our system is supposed to be a system of sovereign states that are sub-entities with the central government. Now, we started with the Articles of Confederation. It was a disaster because they had no taxing authority. They were really limited in what they can do. But this was because our founding fathers were very fearful of a strong central government, having lived under a monarchy that abused them. So they kept a very weak government, but it just didn't work out. So after a dozen years, we held a constitutional convention. We came up with the world's amazing constitution, and we put a constitution in place, and then a Bill of Rights came with that. Now, they are sovereign states. That's what's supposed to happen. The federal government is supposed to have limited powers. But you see this play out. For instance, we have different rules on abortion. We have different rules on driving speeds and standards. We have different rules for business. We have different. Now, there are certain ones that are federal. All states have to comply with that. But states can pick and choose their own standards, and the same for education. And that's kind of the idea. Whereas in South Africa, you have this centralized, top-down, fed down by the parliament and by the national powers to the provinces, to the municipalities, and that. Well, now we have an incongruity. We have problems here, but that's the development of the last 30 or 40 years. But there's certainly problems with the system you have. You have local authorities being blamed for competencies they have no control over, and national authorities ignoring provinces and municipalities, even ones that the same party governs. And I suppose that's one reason why there's been some interest in federalism in South Africa over the past 18 months or so.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the reasons. And if you look at the situation, how it's playing out in the Western Cape, so The Western Cape is the only province in South Africa that's not governed by the African National Congress. It's governed by the Democratic Alliance. It's the only province where the people of the province chose to vote out the African National Congress and chose other leaders to lead them there. So it must be very frustrating to vote for someone else to lead you, and you do get that to a certain point, but they're still subject to national governments. And they are also limited in what they can do and what they can control. So one of the issues, for instance, is the policing issue, which is a big problem in the Western Cape. There's a lot of gang violence in certain areas. And there have been a lot of rumors and accusations being made about, ANC government officials officially, slacking on giving police support there in order to destabilize the province, which wouldn't surprise me at all. So, in the Democratic Alliance's defense, they've come up with creative plans to try and solve those issues. They've appointed municipal police forces to kind of staff those numbers, but they also the added disadvantage. We'll also be releasing a very interesting report quite recently, which I'll let you know about when it's ready, where we look at the fiscal state of the Western Cape, and we look at what the Western Cape adds to the country's fiscus and what they get back for what they get. And I can tell you that it's quite an imbalance. So there are many issues like that, which I think citizens of the Western Cape have very legitimate reasons to not be happy about.
Well, we've seen this issue before, and if and we don't have to go any further than looking at Brexit, the United Kingdom. What was supposed to be a trade organization was morphed into a political organization that usurped sovereignty and authority from national governments, and that was a real issue. Of course, the left that hated the fact that the United Kingdom would want to leave the European Union painted it as, in a race term. It's old white people in the United Kingdom or in England who are opposed to it, who want to leave the European Union, and everyone else wants to stay, and that simply wasn't true. I mean, there's certainly merit to the point that English in general were more in favor of leaving because of sovereignty issues. But the bottom line is this, in the United Kingdom, 800,000 Poles have migrated there. And people are angry about them coming and taking now whether they're right or wrong. I'm not defending this, because when I see Poles in the United Kingdom, they work really hard. they bring entrepreneurialism. They work hard in the hotel industry and the tourism industry. So I'm not denigrating Poles. I'm not attacking. But there are people in the UK who are aggrieved because all these Poles came and they're white, they're blue-eyed, blonde-haired, they're Roman Catholics, they're Protestants. And so when people start this racist narrative, why they want to leave because they're racist, they tried the same thing in the Western Cape. The reason they want secession is they're all racist. But the problem is that 3/4 of the population of the Western Cape aren't black, but they aren't white either. Only 17% of the population of the Western Cape is actually white. So when they try to make this ludicrous argument, it's the same as the UK. It really has a lot to do in the United Kingdom because their sovereignty was being usurped. People being told that you can only have 2 fishermen on 2 days doing this, doing that in your own territorial waters. You have to allow other countries to come in and fish in your territorial waters. You don't get anything from it. You have to use a light bulb of this size determined by people in Brussels, and no respect or recognition of cultural norms. Let's be honest. While all cultures in South Africa represent the Western Cape culture itself, if you want to describe such a thing, is very different than the rest of the country, largely because the massive colored population, the historical Malay population, and plus the Afrikaans speaking. That's kind of where I'm sitting at it, and I think a lot of people who are objective come to the same conclusions, that it has a lot less to do with the arguments that the detractors are making, and more to do with the fact that people in the Western Cape are not happy. They're kind of hot-full with what they put in. The UK was putting a lot more into the European Union than it got out of it. Same thing in the Western Cape, it seems like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you're right about the culture situation. The Western Cape does have its own unique culture, and that's why we also say that this is a Western Cape issue. It's not an Afrikaner issue. It's not an AfriForum issue. It's a Western Cape issue that we support. Because it does have its own unique culture. It's got its own mix and unique blend of cultures there. Even as Afrikaners, we often joke and say, "Ons verstaan nie die Kaapenaars nie." Even the Afrikaners who live in the Cape Town, we don't really get them. They're a bit different, So it's definitely if you look at it from that perspective, it definitely deserves to be more autonomous.
No, I mean, I absolutely understand where they're coming from in that. It is an interesting perspective, and it's. I prefer to get the facts, at least get people's true sentiments. But you're not getting that in the press. You never get that in the press, whether it's in South Africa or abroad. It's characterized as something completely different. But the press is famously good at getting everything wrong. We're still hearing about climate change being the reason there was a drought in Cape Town in 2017. Not the fact that 35 to 45% of all water coming from reservoirs leaked out of the pipes before it reaches destination. Not the fact that the city of Cape Town has no brown water reuse program to water lawns and clean sidewalks and stuff like that. Not the fact that there are communal taps in the Cape Flats that are left running for 24 hours a day wasting water. Yeah, not the fact that water isn't priced appropriately. Not the fact, you get it. So now we see all the reservoirs in Cape Town, the 7 reservoirs that feed the city at 100% capacity, overflowing their banks right now. Where'd that climate change go? No, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to ignore it. I'm just making a point that the press didn't include all the factors that are going on. And it seems like the same thing is going on here. So that's an interesting case that we're talking about here. Is that already gone before the court, or are they considering it? How's that work?
No, our legal team is still busy preparing for it. So we haven't taken any official steps yet, except internal decisions to start working on this. And the guys are busy putting it together.
Tiana Engelbrecht's having a little fun here at Cape Townians in the mother city, saying that we call it Slapstaat. Yeah, I know that. Gauteng people move a little more pace. Yeah, they have to, because they're going to be carjacking and cash and transit heist victims if they don't move faster in Gauteng. Shots fired. Shots fired.
I think the last time we spoke, you and I, we briefly touched on our amazing Minister of Police, Nicklin. But I don't know if you heard what he
What did he say today? I missed it. I did say something this weekend, which just I was gobsmacked. But go ahead. What did he say?
Yeah, no, he says carjackings in Cape Town has gone up, and the reason for that is because of potholes in the roads. Because
they slowed down,
not maintaining the roads. Yeah. So okay, fine. So what about the rest of the country?
I'm sure it has nothing to do with criminal syndicates, with cars being stolen and shipped throughout the rest of Africa.
None whatsoever.
One of my first trips to South Africa in the late 1990s, the time frame, is I traveled from Botswana into Zimbabwe and then back. And in Botswana, I was stopped 7 times by Afrikaans-speaking South African police officer who was working with Interpol to interdict and find stolen cars from South Africa. It's like I almost knew the guy by first name. It was comical. Wherever I went, they were there ahead of me at the next stop. I was in Gaborone. I got stopped leaving Gaborone. I went to Francistown the next day. I left Francistown. They were outside Francistown. I got stopped again. Then I went to Maun. They were at Maun before I got there. When I left Maun, they were there. And then I went to Kasane and went into Zimbabwe. They were in Zimbabwe. They got me there. Then it's just, so the point here is that this has been a long-standing thing. And this goes back to even when the National Party ruled South Africa. Cars were stolen and shipped throughout the region. It's a long-standing issue here. Beckett Seeley's juvenile 30% history grade there really doesn't really impress me. I'll say that much about it. But so that's that case that you guys are looking at. Is there anything else right now on the horizon that AfriForum is focused on, or are you guys at all paying attention to the election? Is there any role? Because I know AfriForum is a civil rights organization. Do you focus at all on the independence of the Independent Electoral Commission, the execution election, whether it's honest? Do you have any role? Do you have any observers, or is that something outside your remit?
No, that's outside of our scope. But of course, if there's any reason to suspect that there has been foul play, or there's any evidence that should ever emerge in a case like that, we would definitely get involved. But no, we don't have any official capacity to oversee elections or to act as observers in a case like that. But yeah, we're very busy with a government like the South African National Congress government. You always have a lot of work in our position.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of main focus points that we are always pushing, and then in between we try and remedy the damage that the government causes. So like as you're aware, we're always focusing on trying to combat farm attacks and farm murders and rural safety and safety in general, not just rural safety. We have safety structures all over the country. We're also putting up a big fight against government's attempts to disarm citizens. They're trying to push through ludicrous firearm ownership laws. We're also fighting against national health insurance. We're fighting against expropriation of property without compensation. So it's a full-blown ideological battle that we're fighting against an ever-increasing communist-leaning government.
Well, there's a couple of those issues right there that some people seem to think are on the back burner, have disappeared, but they're still quite present. Ever present is the expropriation without compensation bill is actually before Parliament now. This ludicrous bill, which would allow the state to confiscate people's property, which is not simply land, which seems to be lost on people. I've been telling people all along that property is your stocks, your bonds, your jewelry, your car, your home, your clothing, whatever they want to take. And as I've warned people, the government of the day, whether it's the DA, the ANC, whoever it is, the government of the day will misuse this change in the Constitution to silence its critics. Anytime you say anything against the government, they'll just comment, hey, well, check out your retirement account. You notice it's empty? Maybe you should shut up. And that's what they'll use it for. The truth of the matter is, with land expropriation in South Africa, the ANC has botched this. They actually did a reasonable job with the first 75,000 claims in the only legitimate period that people could claim land. That was from 1995 to 99. 75,000 plus claims. 74,000 have been settled over 20 years. There's over 1,200 still outstanding, and these are because some of them are contentious. There's multiple claimants. People won't settle. But to be honest, most of those claims, people took financial compensation, and a lot of them were urban claims, which is the truth here. But the story that people don't pay attention with land expropriation is that while the majority of people who were dispossessed were black South Africans, all South Africans had land taken from them forcibly, including white farmers in the 1980s when 3.5 million blacks were relocated in South Africa. White farmers were relocated from Northwest to KZN and other places around the country in order to create the homelands. They took farmland. Now, they were compensated and given something, but anyway. So the point here is that this expropriation is before the parliament. Now, it's not dead. If the ANC could hoodwink the EFF, or if they have a change of heart, they would have the 2/3 majority and it would become the law of the land. The Constitution would be amended, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's the possibility is there. But there's also an interesting question in parliamentary procedure there, because there seems to be another legal dispute where some claim that you need a 2/3 majority. That's how they interpret the Constitution to change the Constitution, and the other take is that it needs to be 75%. So now 2/3 don't exactly equate to 75%. So that's another interesting legal question that's still probably going to get fought. But they're still trying to push ahead with this process, but they haven't succeeded yet.
Well, that's the thing that gets me, because my interpretation, and maybe it's wrong. I mean, I've actually read the South African Constitution, all 70,000 pages. No, it's not that long, but it's the most liberal constitution in the world. It's quite an extensive one. It has all kinds of guarantees, including gay marriages in there. But I understood it was 2/3, but then I see a report in the press it takes 3/4, and so I'm confused, and maybe I need to go back and reread it. So that is an interesting question there. I hope it's 3/4. that's a difficult hurdle to surmount, But I hope that's the case, because I always worry that the EFF is gonna play games with us. But so that's still, people think it's dead. I mean, Ronaldo Gos on his program is like, oh, it's dead. No, it's not dead. It's not dead. It's before Parliament, and it doesn't take much to call a vote on the floor. It just takes a few bribes, a few parliamentary positions, that sort of thing. We've seen it before. So that's important. That's still out there. Now, here's the other one that you refer to that's critically important. This is the effort to disarm law-abiding South Africans in a country in which 60 murders per day are committed, horrific rural violence against farmers, farm workers, farm managers, tortures, rapes, mutilations, all these horrific things, which, of course, they don't occur. I mean, I'm just making this all up. I mean, I've heard it from none other than the source himself, H.R. Puffin stuff. I mean, Cyril Ramaphosa. You may not know who H.R. Puffin stuff is. It's a comic thing for Saturday morning cartoons for kids back in the 1970s. But anyway, he's a big lizard-looking thing with a big head and round face. Anyway, so H.R. Puffin stuff, also known as Cyril Ramaphosa. I heard it directly. He was talking to a reporter with Bloomberg outside the United Nations Summit back in early 2018. He said there are no farm murders in South Africa. And then he went a step further and was specific. He said there are no white farmers being murdered. I'm sorry, my count's 28 to 3,800 or more farmers and their children butchered and tortured. But anyway, so they seek to disarm people, and it's carjackings, home invasions, unbelievable stuff. I've seen so many clips of people in South Africa. Ian Cameron puts a lot of these things up. He passes them around, of people who've defended themselves in broad daylight, attempted carjackings, attempted kidnappings by having a firearm, and then people just being shot at on the streets and able to defend themselves because they can fire back. They want to leave you defenseless. Now, that's pretty scary in a country with the level of violent crime that South Africa has. But add to that a socialist communist bent of the tripartite alliance, and then consider what's happened in the Australian penal colony. Now, I know that's op-ed. I'm calling it the penal colony. But when cops show up at a person's house 6 months after a lawful demonstration with a printout of a Facebook post with a photograph that he posted, and they start asking him, well, were you at this demonstration? And he's like, why? That's from 6 months ago. So they can get him to state that he was there so they can arrest him under the draconian fascist regulations. The reason why we have a Second Amendment in this country had a lot less to do with defending us against Native American attacks or against Quebecois coming down or Brits attacking our country or Spanish attack. It had everything to do with a concern and reservation over the state exceeding its authority, and citizens were allowed to be armed because the greatest threat to our liberty was the state itself.
And it's a very, very fair reason and a very fair thing to be concerned about. I mean, if you look at the state of the world at the moment, I mean, two of the supposedly freest countries in the world, Canada and Australia, are going absolutely nuts. I mean, the example you just mentioned. Now, can you imagine? Maybe it's something when one shouldn't speculate about too hard. But if Australians never gave up their guns, maybe. Their government wouldn't have been so pushy, you know. But you can just imagine how a government like the ANC government would abuse something like that. If you see what's happening in supposedly free democratic countries, it'll be an absolute nightmare in South Africa should that ever come to pass. Absolutely.
And what wasn't it? If I don't want to misquote, I mean, so many of these quotes are out there, but I don't want to misquote. But wasn't it Beckett Shelley himself who argued recently that a firearm is not a legitimate reason for self-defense, is not a legitimate reason to have a firearm?
Yeah, that's actually taken up in the new proposed amendments to the Firearms Control Act. It actually states there that self-defense will no longer be a valid reason to own a firearm. So if that's not a valid reason to own a firearm, then what on earth is a valid reason to own a firearm? Now, I mean, I wouldn't support a law like that, even if we were in an absolute crime-free country with a functioning police force. I wouldn't support that because it comes back to basic freedoms. And, you know, the government of the day can change its character any day. Every 4 years, someone else can come into power. So people should be very careful about supporting laws like that. But, you know, so even in a country like that, I wouldn't support it. Never mind a country like South Africa, where we have this extremely high violent crime rates and where we have a dysfunctioning police force.
Absolutely. You know, it is very interesting to see what happened in Australia once they were disarmed, and the sheeple just went along with it. You know, just like just went right along with it. Yeah, it's just crazy. And the same in New Zealand, taking their firearms. Now, look, I'm not. You know, people come out and say, "Well, you're gun crazy, you're gun toting." No, I've never indicated whether I have any firearms or not, and that's my personal business, and the state authorities where I would have to register them if I had them, but no one else's business. But it is a frightening prospect, and it's constantly under assault in this country. The Second Amendment. People distort the argument. They lie about it. They take shootings and blow them all out of proportion as to what happened, as tragic as they are. And then when it doesn't fit their narrative, the story disappears. It's a really bizarre situation. And you can't have a firearm to protect yourself. That's just, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Harsh words? Don't shoot me! You know?
That's my argument always is, especially when this debate about this new law was raging a few months back. It's gone a bit quiet now, but when it was big in the news cycle, this is an argument I often used, and people are like, no, you're gun crazy, you're right-wing. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. How many times have you had an AK-47 in your face and not been able to get to your weapon or have a weapon on you or defend yourself? Have you ever been in a situation like that? I haven't had one person come back who said, yes, I've been in a situation like that and I'm still anti-gun. Because I've been in a situation like that. So I would always support everyone's right to be armed, to be able to defend yourself when you can.
See, it's always the people who know nothing about firearms that are the most opposed to it. They act as if they know what they're talking about. Listen, I grew up with firearms. Under the age of 10, I was already handling rifles and shotguns and going to turkey shoots, which is not shooting turkeys. It's a competition at targets. We call it a turkey shoot here. But going to turkey shoots and then also, you know, hunting on the farm, and then also using it to get rid of rodents, that sort of thing. I remember one day we killed about 40 rats with a shotgun. It was interesting. But anyway, the point is that I never picked up a firearm until I got an admonishment about how dangerous it is and how to use it safely. There was never a piece of ammunition until I'd been trained repeatedly about how to carry it safely, how to point it in the right direction, that sort of thing. And that gun safety was always a focus. Same in the military. And same in the military. We go to ranges, gun safety is an absolute priority. And these people who run around They talk about guns killing people. No, people kill people. And if you don't have guns, like we'll see with Sadiq Khan's lunacy in London, they'll have knives. Then they ban knives. Then they use clubs. What are you going to do? You're going to ban cricket bats next? This is ludicrous. What you have to do is change the culture, the violent culture of people, to stop them from devaluing life and think it's perfectly okay. I mean, this not carrying firearms, I think back to this horrific execution I saw in a cash and transit heist last year. In our summertime, your wintertime in Joburg, when a cash and transit driver, a slightly pudgy white guy, was walking out. The bollards are out there so that vehicles can't come up next to the building. I don't know if he came from a retailer or a bank, doesn't matter, but he's carrying out bags. And as he walks out to the truck, a Baki pulls up with seven black guys jump off the back. They rush up. One has a pistol, puts it to the back of his head. He drops the bags on the ground. He hands them the keys. He doesn't look. They're all wearing balaclavas, so they can't be seen who they are, can't identify them. They open up the truck. They rob it of whatever's inside there, and they force him to the ground. He goes to the ground. He doesn't resist. He submits, and then they execute him with a bullet to the back of the head. What the hell? Don't you have a right to life in South Africa? Isn't that part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Isn't that part of your Constitution? The answer to both those questions is yes. But your government actually has the audacity to say that the solution to ending organized crime syndicates and violent crime is to take guns away from law-abiding citizens who have no police to defend them, only themselves.
As long as you've got a government like the African National Congress in charge, who themselves don't value life and set a terrible example of preserving it, you're going to have a culture like that flourishes. Throwing all the other socio-economic challenges, unemployment and poverty, and lawlessness, easy access to guns and illegal activities, and you're going to have a culture like that. If you just look at the example that the government is setting up themselves, I mean, there are so many. How many small kids have drowned in pit latrines, pit toilets, because government's just too useless to build proper infrastructure. Cyril Ramaphosa made big promises when he became president, eradicating pit toilets in 6 months. Where are those? I actually tweet at him every few months just to remind him about that. I ask him, so how's it going with the pit toilets? And you never get any response. But, it's little things like that show you that they just do not care. They care about lining their own pockets. Look at the Life Esidimeni tragedy, for instance. Another corrupt deal that went horribly wrong. And I can't even remember the exact amount now, but hundreds of people died. Thousands of psychiatric patients went missing. They didn't even tell their families where they transferred them to because of a corrupt money-saving deal they tried to pull through there. And there's just no consequences for that. So there's a new commission of inquiry looking into that. We're also involved with that. We've got a legal team there. And it's always a new commission of inquiry trying to do a fact-finding mission, but nothing ever happens. These people are protected. They get away literally with murder. So if that's what your leaders of the country are doing, where do you think the guy who grew up in the streets, who has no options, what is he going to do? How much is he going to value life?
No, absolutely. Well, let me ask this question real quick because people commented earlier. I don't want to miss before we finish this conversation. I can see part of your shirt. It says Freiburger, which to me is a free citizen rather than a serf. Is there more to the shirt, or is it just say Freiburger?
It's just a brand. I'll show you. There we go.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Freiburger with an old Boer warrior, and on his hat he's got the 1914 rebellion flag.
Yeah, but his cowboy hat looks a lot less like a Boer and a lot more like somebody in the old West here in the States. Okay, I was just curious because people saw the Freiburger, so they were real excited about that. So let me get a couple comments in here before we wrap up here from the Jesse Rondelhoff says, I'm sure Chris has a hidden room full of guns somewhere. I can neither confirm nor deny that statement. What I can say is that when those annoying little tykes come around for Halloween, I keep a 50 cal in the hallway just to frighten them off. What do you need a 50 cal
I want to know what's behind that world map of yours, Chris.
Well, there's no New Zealand on there. People keep complaining about that. No New Zealand on my map, if you look.
Oh, wow.
It's actually there, though, but they painted it over in black. So if you get close, you can see the islands on there. But people are always complaining there's no New Zealand on there. It's because Jacinda Ardern's in charge. Once she leaves, I'll put it back on the map.
Well, I can't see Orania on there either, so I'm also offended.
Well, Orania's below my head. It's real small, so there you go. So, what else? Fleshin said that his uncle was stabbed to death on Saturday. Sorry to hear that, Fleshin. See, there you go.
Sorry.
And Tony Nagy, whose parents fled Hungary in '56. His uncle wound up in the Gulag, but his father got to South Africa, and then he fled South Africa. He lives in Canada now. Tony said firearms is just another tool. Exactly right. And if you treat them, there's no well, there is a distinction, but to me, I treat them the same: an automobile and a firearm. They're both weapons. They're both weapons, and this is before terrorists would use them to drive over people at London Bridge or Paris, because people, and it goes for me back to the 1980s when people would drink alcohol and be inebriated, and we had lots of fatalities because the drunks were running into people in cars and pedestrians. And I said, it's a weapon. It's a weapon. I mean, you drive more than 5 kilometers per hour, you could kill somebody. I mean, and that's not embellishment. So you have to treat these things as tools and treat them with respect, and that's the thing about firearms. Let me see what else we got here real quickly. Nicholas Barato says, Cape secession is a necessity for the survival of the Cape. 27 years of corrupt ANC, yet the Cape is the only part of South Africa that's functioning yet. Other provinces keep ANC in power. Well, certainly Gauteng. Gauteng is a huge source of revenue for the ANC, the bankrupt ANC, that is. And Sean says Cape is a shadow of its former self from 35 years ago. Well, we only have you for a short time today, so I don't want to monopolize all the time here. But so we've talked about a few things you guys are working on: the thing to disarm South Africans, the expropriation without compensation, which hasn't gone away despite what a lot of people said, and also this issue with clarifying the 1983 law, making it congruent with the current constitution, so that premiers have the right to do this. Has any organization, I know that the Freedom Front Plus has come out in favor of Cape secession. The Democratic Alliance appears to be agnostic. They're in favor of a referendum. But of any significant South Africans anywhere in the business sector or in politics come out in favor of this? Rob Herself, I think, had some comments recently. I don't know if he's in favor of it. But have you heard anything or anyone actually supporting this that people might know of or heard about?
It's there are definitely a lot of people who do support it. I would be thumb-sucking if I said it's the majority of the Western Cape citizens, or it's not. It seems to be roughly like 3 groups: those who support full secession, those who support more of an autonomous federal type system, and then those who kind of don't have an opinion about the matter. That's the impression we're getting. But a referendum will solve that answer. We're also actually hosting a conference in the Western Cape pretty soon about growing Cape independence. And we've got a couple of big speakers lined up there who do support it. So I definitely get the impression that the movement is growing. It's not some far-right kook idea, as it's often labeled in the media. I think there are a lot of people who do support this.
Now, I want to turn to a topic that's disturbing, but it's important to talk about, and especially given what I've seen in the media of late. I've, for a long time, covered rural insecurity and violence and murders, farm murders, plasmoord in South Africa, inside the intelligence community, where I can't discuss what I share, but over for a couple decades. And then once I become retired in private sector, I've talked about it publicly. Over the past, going on 600 days now of lockdown in South Africa, 570 something, 580, whatever it is. We saw a tailing off of insecurity and because the police and the military were out initially, and that made a difference. But then we saw once in June of last year, they lifted those restrictions a bit. The murders took off again, especially of farmers and people in rural properties. This was all over the press. It was all over every outlet. All the captured media in South Africa would report on it, and they would go on. They would also like to take the approach to always talk about, people complain about white genocide, but it seemed like the media was the one raising the topic more than any South Africans. Not to say there aren't any white South Africans who don't say that, but it's certainly not the main narrative. People are just concerned about their welfare and safety. So they talked about endlessly. I can give you names. Edward Neumeister, an Austrian immigrant who was murdered with a panga. He was mortally wounded. The guy went in to murder his partner in the kitchen of his closed because of lockdown German restaurant in KZN. He managed to stumble up, 67, 69 years old, whatever he was, and interfere with the attacker, and then she escaped. That case, no convictions that I'm aware of. We saw the Indian woman 4 months pregnant on the Ayub farm near Weenan, that story. We saw Brendan Horner, of course, which was a touchstone issue. And the list goes on and on, these horrific things that happened. And they're all being reported. I've noticed a trend since a few weeks before the Constitutional Court forced the Independent Electoral Commission to hold these elections as per the Constitution. I've noticed a trend that virtually no media are reporting on any farm murders, but they haven't stopped. I'm aware of at least 4 or 6 farm murders. I can confirm four for sure. I haven't confirmed the other 2 over the past 2 weeks. And there's not a single report in any media whatsoever. The only place to get it is from a couple of alternative sites. I think this is an intentional suppression about this particular form of violence in the build-up to the election, and then after the election, we'll probably hear about it. But right now, I think they're intentionally covering it up. I might be wrong about that, but there's certainly, I'm right that the media is intentionally ignoring this issue because it's politically inconvenient, whether that means through the election or through the rest of the year or into the future. But do you see that, and do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know that AfriForum works very heavily in this area, and you guys are very well informed about what's happening.
Well, I can tell you that just as far as of what I'm personally aware of, I know of at least 3 attacks over the weekend in different parts of the country.
Just this weekend. I was saying over the last. I was talking over the last 2. I was talking over the last 2 weeks. So you're just talking this weekend.
This weekend, yeah. In some of the cases, some of the suspects were apprehended by our local security networks. But there were also victims who didn't make it. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing issue. It hasn't disappeared. And you're absolutely correct. It's politically inconvenient. It doesn't fit the narrative. You know how the media is. You know how they report. You know how left-leaning they are, and it simply doesn't fit the narrative. The same way that there aren't poor white people in South Africa. Yeah, it's that same argument.
But hang on before you finish. The problem I have with that is I saw very clearly from SABC the black reporter who went to a white squatter camp and said, "How come there are no poor black people here? Are you racist? Do you exclude them?" What the heck? Do you remember that? That was from last year when the lockdown was going on. Started. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't mean to disrupt your.
You just can't win with.
I just didn't mean to disrupt your flow, but I had to get that in. That's right up there. That's right up there with the reporter in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year on CNN when there's a car dealership with dozens of cars in flames behind him. It looks like the La Palma volcano behind him. He goes, "I'm here in Kenosha at a mostly peaceful protest." What the heck? Oh my God. Yeah, sorry.
Let's not forget our new best example. Let's go, Brandon.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I had to think for a second. Yeah, you know what? Screw Biden. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, no, that's it's astounding that they think they can get away with this. How stupid they think people are. Well, apparently a lot of people are pretty stupid. There'll be a lot of people voting for the ANC on the 1st of November.
Well, yeah. Look, as far as farm attacks are concerned, there are a couple of things that one needs to bear in mind to really see the broader picture. So first of all, you touched on it just now. Our own President Cyril Ramaphosa openly admitted in front of the international press, his words were, "There are no farmers being murdered in South Africa. There's no farm attacks," which is absolutely untrue. It's an outright lie. There are hundreds of attacks and a lot of people are getting killed. So that's the first issue. Second issue is, from AfriForum's side, we've never claimed that there's a white genocide happening in South Africa. But we do say that farm attacks are a serious problem. It's a unique problem that needs a unique solution. And I'd like to. I'm sure you're aware of this, and I'd like to invite your guests as well to go and Google how many times press outlets have had to apologize to AfriForum for claiming that we've claimed that there's a white genocide. Just go and read it up. We've won so many cases in front of the press ombudsman because we've never said that. But that doesn't mean that farm attacks are not a real issue, and that it is often race driven. We're not saying that's the case in every aspect, but in many cases it has been found to be the case. And if you look at the absolute overkill, how people are tortured, old people tied up, burned with warm irons, and have boiling water thrown down their throats, and tortured with heavy drills and things like that for hours. I mean, that's hate. That's pure hate. That's not a crime motivated by poverty or hunger.
No, absolutely not. And that's essentially lost. Now, you've got to go. I don't want to keep you too much longer here, but just a couple things to wrap up. AfriForum has done some yeoman's work in producing films, both in Afrikaans and in English, about some of these, and particularly one of the horrific attacks with a couple that was butchered with pangas, and they shot their toddler. A really sad story. But are you guys working on any productions like that right now related to any issues in South Africa? Is there anything in the works that we can look forward to seeing coming out sometime soon?
We're actually busy producing a series at the moment called 8 Levels of Control, and it's based on. I'm sure many of your viewers would have in recent months again seen this theory, the 8 Levels of Control theory, about turning a democratic society into a socialist state. There are 8 critical levels that a government needs to get complete control over. So those include things such as welfare, disarming citizens, increasing poverty, a few things like that. So we're looking at that theory and then just comparing it to ANC policy decisions and actions in the last couple of years to see if there's any merit to it. So it's going to be a pretty revealing series. It's going to be in 8 parts. every episode's going to look at a different level, and I think it's going to bring a few people to quite a few insights.
Now, this has come up in the chat, and I'm going to wrap up with this, and I'm not going to try to force you to commit to it, but just a suggestion here, because my viewers have brought it up again. I'm actually going to be covering Black Monday once again this year, events taking place that day, working with Yanni Meyer, who's taken over responsibility for that organization over the past year, and we're trying to get attention drawn to that. A few of my viewers suggested this and asked me if I would host a forum with people like yourself and maybe some other folks from AfriForum and other organizations to talk about rural insecurity and violence in advance of Black Monday. I don't know if that's something that AfriForum would be interested in. If they would mind me, if they'd like me to do it, if you'd be involved in it. I'm not going to put you in a spot. You don't have to commit to it, but just throw that seed to germinate out there. If you guys be interested in it, and we'll set it up before Black Monday, and if it's possible, and we'll see how it goes from there. It
sounds good. Yeah, no,
okay.
We can definitely try and organize it. I'll get some of our guys involved who are more involved with the security structures and the neighborhood watches.
Cool.
And we can definitely try and set that up. Sounds good.
Excellent. Sounds great. So bye-bye, Donkey. As always, Jacques, it's a pleasure to have you on. I appreciate it. Listen, for those who don't know, Jacques, on short notice, we had a court decision a few weeks ago. I asked him to come on. He came on, and he paid me. I haven't shared this with anyone, Jacques. You paid me a very high compliment after that and said that all the media outlets that contacted you, I seem to be the only one who actually informed about the topic that I was asking you questions about.
Which is impressive for an American.
Oh, here it comes. Well, as Ronaldo Jose always likes to tell people, the only reason for my interest in South Africa is I've come for your petroleum, which is non-existent.
Well, it's right under the $2.
Oh, that's where it's at. Well, it's definitely not coming out of the pipes of Sasselberg anymore.
Yeah, no. Yes, I don't even want to laugh about that, but yeah.
Pretty sad.
Anyway, Chris, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure as always. Take care. Thanks a lot, folks. Jacques is with us this week because he was ill last week, but he's on the mend. He looks fantastic. Cheers, Jacques. All right,
thanks, man.
He's going to step out. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for tuning into this stream. Really appreciate it. There we go. He's out. And that was Jacques Broodryk from AfriForum, the campaigns manager and spokesperson for AfriForum, civil rights organization in South Africa. We talk about a host of issues, starting, of course, first with that topic about the case clarifying the 1983 law and making sure it's congruent or in accord with the current constitution regarding the ability of premiers to hold referendums. And so that was interesting. We talked about the effort to take firearms from South Africans, expropriation without compensation, which, contrary to what a lot of people think, hasn't gone away. And then we kind of wrapped up talking about farm murders, another topic that they have a great deal of expertise in. Thanks a lot for your following this interview. It was my pleasure to have Jacques on again. And we'll try to set this forum up and see what happens and see how it goes. Should be interesting. I think I would really enjoy that opportunity to talk to people who are working in this sector. And we'll see what we can do. That should be fascinating. Anyway, so Lawrence says, I saw you on Styx' stream yesterday. So you know, Styx don't answer non-super chats. Was I on Styx yesterday? I don't remember being on Styx yesterday. I've been on there, but I don't think I was on there yesterday. Roy says, shots fired. Tian says, thanks for having him on. Yeah, I had him on twice now. This is the third time. First time was a short interview the day that the case broke, and I got him on. He came on right away. And then, because Ernst von Saal gave me his contact, so I reached out to him, got him on. And then we did a short interview after that, and now he's been on for a third time. So really appreciate his help to come on the channel, explain some of these issues, which are really important for all South Africans. Hey, Rabbit, good to see you there again. And Tion's here, Lawrence, Hendo, Larsalis. Yeah, the Telegram announcements group, folks. If you want to see when my content is up, you got to go to that. Okay, all right, Larsalis, I did that. Hey, Michelle, welcome. Michelle Millard is here. How are things? And let's see. Drew just subscribed. Yeah, if you're not a subscriber, folks, 74 people currently here. Why don't you subscribe to my channel? You get this independent, objective analysis. Now, that's not unbiased, okay? Independent and objective is not unbiased. We all have our own biases, and I have a bias, and I'm honest about my bias. I don't deny it. I am conservative, I'm center-right, and I'm honest about that. I believe in small government. I believe that government exists to serve us, not the other way around. We are not the serfs of government. That's my view. And lots of philosophers, lots of political scientists, lots of economists can back up my position going back centuries, all the way back to the Magna Carta. So government exists to serve us, not the other way around. So yeah, I have my bias, but I'm honest about it. I'm also fair. You'll notice 2 days ago, I finally had a chance to say something positive about the ANC. As a mayor in the Eastern Cape, is mayor of an ANC-controlled municipality with 140,000 residents that's had 6 consecutive clean audits. And I hailed her for that and said, fantastic. That means they're not dishonest thieves, unlike a lot of ANC ward councils and city councils. But I don't know anything about her competence. I don't know if she's competent or not. So I didn't comment on that, but I did comment on the fact of clean audit. So yeah, I'll bring the good news too, as much as I can. But in South Africa, a lot of bad news. And around Africa, lots of bad news, but lots of good news. And I try to bring that to you as well. So feel free to become a subscriber. We've got Indaba Conversation with Chris, where I do these interviews. They're less interviews and more of a conversation. And then we also have my interviews with politicians around the world and farmers and musicians and artists and people from all over the place. By the way, the Wide Family Farm was in this stream earlier. I'll be appearing on their channel in November. So I'm looking forward to that. They've invited me on their channel in November. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a channel that's based in Ohio. They've got a small family farm, and they talk about farming and other things. So they've invited me on their channel. Looking forward to that. And anyway, so tomorrow morning here on Chris Wyatt Africa, I've got the president of the Inkatha Freedom Party. That's an early broadcast, very early for me. That's 11 a.m. in South Africa. It's 5 a.m. for me when I'll be doing the interview, but that's when he's available, so that's when I'm going to do it. And then I'll also have Jack Miller from the Cape Independence Party coming on the channel sometime in the near future, plus a ward councillor candidate from Ekurhuleni in Gauteng who's running for the Democratic Alliance, and then a few other folks. So please feel free to pop in and check out what's going on. My broadcast schedule will be a little wonky for the next few weeks because I'll be working consulting during the day, and so it's going to be impossible for me to do my normal news stream at the top of the noon. But I will do it from my car, in my mobile, and I'll be broadcasting and keeping people up to date. We'll listen to stuff, and I'll answer your chat. I'll also be doing interviews early, dark 30 for me as we go through this. I'll be on my normal schedule over the weekends, but this runs for the next 3 weeks. I've got a consulting gig I have to do with the Army. Then I'm doing another one with the Department of Commerce, and that runs through the 4th of November. I'll also be participating in a closed panel at the University of Witwatersrand. That's taking place in November as well. I'm trying to sort out the day. I've asked them to do it on the 5th, but that's not something any of you can watch. It's a closed session, and I'll be doing that relating to security and terrorism in Africa at University of Witwatersrand. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be pretty cool. And I've just come back from Florida State University, where I was at last week when I spoke to students on campus about national security, geopolitics, and development in Africa. It was kind of cool. So if you're not a subscriber to Chris Wyatt Africa, why don't you become one? Where else are you going to get news about Burundi, Rwanda, Guinea, Mali, Mauritania, Morocco? You get it right here in Chris Wyatt Africa, with a big focus on Southern Africa because it's my first love, my first forte when it comes to the continent, and especially on South Africa. So there you have it, folks. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Thanks to my guest, Jacques Broodryk. Really appreciate him being here on the program. It was fantastic. Be sure to smash the like button, folks, on your way out the door. It's the only price of admission we ask for. We don't beg you to super chat, although you're welcome to super chat if you want. And we don't beg you to become members, although we ask you to become members on occasion, supporting independent journalism. If you are interested in supporting independent journalism, it's very inexpensive. I have 3 tiers, $2.99 for the entry level. Then it's $6.99 for the intermediate level, which is platoon leader, and then $14.99 for master and commander. So you got recruit, team member, platoon leader, master, and commander. In South Africa, they only charge you 20 Rand for the membership. So that's $1 something, not even $3. So if you want to support independent journalism, you have the means, by all means, become a member. You get unique little things like avatars next to your username, which means that clones can't, that trolls can't clone you. And you also get some unique access, early access to some videos and other perks like that. Anyway, thanks a lot. Appreciate everybody popping on the channel and catching this stream. It was quite enjoyable for me, and I hope that you found it useful. Thank you once again, Jacques. Bye-bye, Donkey. Appreciate your time today. All right, folks, that's it. I'm out of here. I'll be back with a Night Owls program in a little over 2 hours, and we'll just chat and kind of prat a little bit about what's been happening today around the world. Thanks a lot. I've also got to make a video which won't be safe for YouTube regarding that Australian gentleman whose home he was harassed by the police. You can't put that on YouTube because they'll come up with some reason that says it violates some non-existent community standard. So I will make a teaser on this channel and then direct you to my Odyssey account where you can watch the full analysis and the full video. Thank you very much, folks. God bless, and be safe out there, all right? Captain Kirk, James Tiberius Kirk, William Shatner will be launched into space on Blue Horizons. That's coming up on Wednesday. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but it's been delayed to Wednesday. I'll have live coverage of that, of the launch. Pretty cool. Looking forward to that. All right, folks, take care. We'll catch you later here on Chris Wyatt Africa in about 2 hours. Be safe out there and take care of yourselves. because it's not the government's job. Cheers.